Welcome back to Penguin Classics On Air. Shepard Fairey is the man behind Obey Giant. What started out with an absurd sticker he created in 1989 while a student at the Rhode Island School of Design has since evolved into a worldwide street art campaign, as well as an acclaimed body of fine art. In 2003, Fairey founded the creative design firm Studio No. 1. Fairey's art reached a new height of prominence in 2008 when his Hope portrait of Barack Obama became the iconic image of the presidential campaign and helped inspire an unprecedented political movement. Shepard Fairey contributes a new foreword to this Penguin Classics Deluxe edition of Keith Haring's journals. In your new foreword to Keith Haring's journals, you mentioned that even though he passed away 2 years after you began making street art, he had a profound impact on you. What were some of the most memorable pieces he created that you remember starting out?
Well, I definitely remember the baby graphic. The glowing baby graphic was something that I saw on T-shirts. When I went to art summer school in the summer of 1987, there was a guy there who had a Haring T-shirt. I didn't really know anything about him, but I asked about it. And then one of my teachers there also was really into Warhol and brought up Haring, and I thought, well, I guess growing up in South Carolina, I somehow missed out on this until I was 17. But really, it was the following year when I went to the Rhode Island School of Design. I became friends in 1988 with a guy who was from New York and was a really big Haring fan and actually had a drawing by Keith in his sketchbook, a guy named Adam Gould who was from a graffiti crew called the Urban Folk Artists from Williamsburg. And he was the one that really clued me into everything that Haring had been doing, from the chalk drawings in the subway to the activism to the clothing and pop shop. And really, I think in a lot of ways, Adam was talking about trying to do something along similar lines as Keith. He was very inspired by him, and I dug what he was doing as well. And I was really forming my ideas about how art would be disseminated and created. And I had a background in skateboarding and punk rock, very do-it-yourself cultures, and I was just more recently getting into hip-hop and graffiti. And so it all sort of made sense together when I learned about Keith's background. But I also really remember the crack is whack. It's so memorable, and that, that crack epidemic was big news then. And I loved the politics of punk rock and, the activism. And, to me, when I saw Keith's work, the crack is whack, and then the graphic of the DJ, and it sort of tied into like the celebrations of life and the commentary on social issues that I wanted to try to bring into my work, but I hadn't quite figured out how to do yet.
You talk a lot about the socio-political activism that everyone recognizes in his artwork. What other specific campaigns did you find most inspiring?
A lot of them. I love that he was against apartheid, that he did anti-nuclear proliferation imagery that he did for AIDS, the silence equals death poster. I mean, these are all issues that are still very relevant, but, were really coming into focus in a lot of ways in the 80s. And, he stuck his neck out there to make statements about things that, that were controversial. And I always respond to that. But probably the most significant one is City Kids, because I really think that art is undervalued as a tool for communication, for building people's self-esteem, for enhancing people's problem-solving skills. And when a successful artist works with kids that have never really utilized art as an outlet to great effect, and they see firsthand how it can work, I think that you take people who are still optimistic about what they might be able to do in life, they're not too jaded yet, and you really maximize their their potential out of the experience they gain from that. So I love that, and I'm planning on doing something with the City Kids when I'm in New York in the spring. And that's something that I think is a great project that's ongoing. Really respond to the idea, because a lot of people that were above me that sort of mentored me made a huge difference in my life.
Well, talking about young artists and students, What do you think they could learn from reading the journals?
The journals are really impressive in that they show how much Keith really thought about what he was doing. And a lot of people, I think, you can just make pictures that are taking on the style that's hot at the moment. Keith had a vision that was pretty profound, and it's well demonstrated in his journals. He also has insecurities and talks about problems he's struggling with. But what you really get a sense of from his journals is that he paid close attention to what was going on around him in the world, and then analyzed how he could most effectively pursue what he wanted to do within that framework and make a difference. And I think what's just most inspiring about it is his skills of observation are well demonstrated, and I think that translates to the reader as, hey, that might be a valuable thing in your life as well. So I think there's a lot of valuable lessons in the way Keith observed and really wrote about his experiences that I think people can benefit from.
Where do you see Keith's influence in street art today?
Keith's influence in street art is tremendous. Any street art that utilizes anything other than just lettering for graffiti or for street art probably owes a lot to Keith Haring, because prior to Keith, most graffiti was lettering based, name based. He brought characters into it. He still used type, but he brought a whole visual language of different symbols and characters, and almost like his sort of hieroglyphics. And a lot of street artists, I think, have come up with a series of images that aren't just based on their name, and they owe something to Keith. And they also owe a lot to Keith for breaking down the barriers between outsider art, street art, illegal art, and commercial art. Keith was doing album covers, he was doing T-shirts, he was doing all sorts of things that I think when people from the street art or graffiti world worry that they'll lose credibility if they aren't just a vandal or an anarchist, it's impossible to live from street art. It enhances. Some people think it enhances. Other people think it impairs one's ability to enjoy the urban landscape. But I think Keith made it okay to also make a living from this kind of art, which is really, really valuable.
Keith was adamant about the public's right to art. How does his approach relate to your own philosophy on art and its purpose?
I've always been a populist, and I've responded to populist art, whether it was music or film or visual art. And I think that what Keith really recognized is that art is not just for the elite. It's for everyone. He understood how art plugs into pop culture. He understood that art on the street is free and accessible to the public. And I love that he began as a street artist when that was his only available platform, and literally the subway platforms many times. He expanded that approach to the pop shop, to making T-shirts, to doing cheaper lithographs of his posters, of his paintings, or free ones that he would give away when his art started to go up in price. He still wanted people to be able to get something. That's a real great way to engage an audience. And I agree that art should be for the masses. It should be for everyone. A lot of people stand to benefit from exposure to art, not just those with a lot of money and breeding.
I've learned from your website, Obey Giant, that you have new work inspired by Keith Haring coming up. Can you share with listeners what they can look forward to?
I love to do portraits of people, and I'm collaborating with the photographer Patrick McMullen on a portrait of Keith that I'm illustrating from a photo that he took in, I believe it's 82, and Keith's holding a spray can. He's got a respirator around his neck, and he's not wearing a shirt. And the photograph is really great in that it shows Keith in action. He's been painting. He's got some paint drips on him, but it also has a classicism similar to Michelangelo's David. And I just love the sort of high art, low art juxtaposition of this piece, and I've tried to illustrate it in a very elegant way, and we're going to use the poster to help raise some funds for, I think, the Haring Foundation and one of the AIDS projects. And I'm also going to create a fine art piece of it that's going to go in my show at the Jeffrey Deitch Gallery, Deitch Projects. And it's a great connection because Jeffrey Deitch was a champion of Keith's and has sold and shown Keith's work over the years.
Well, thank you so much, Shepard, for spending this time with Penguin Classics on Air.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Penguin Classics on Air. All of the books mentioned on the show are available wherever books are sold. Visit us again for more programs on great classic books.